Awesome. Well, welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me this evening on this wonderful Zoom sake tasting to celebrate World Sake Day. So this it's been really exciting. I've been watching the American Sake Association's sake panels that they've had going on for most of the day now. So I'm really excited that I get to share a little bit with all of you tonight. So this will be quite a lot of fun. So yeah, kind of what I want to start with is just kind of casually go through the sake that we have in terms of, tasting notes, ask any questions that you feel like asking. I'll kind of go along and, explain the sake terms that we need when we're, tasting each of the different sakes. So yeah, if anyone has any questions about anything, if I'm not completely clear, I can accidentally do that. Feel free to chime in and ask either in chat or go ahead and just speak up and unmute yourself for a second. And yeah, I'm gonna finish the sake that I'm drinking right now. Awesome. Does everyone have their sake at the ready?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. All right. The first one that I want to start with, I'm going to kind of start from... it's going to make... I think the order that we'll go in just kind of makes sense to me in a tasting. It's not in grade order. It's not in any kind of particular order. But where I want to start this evening is with Rihaku's Dance of Discovery. So this is going to be a really, really pretty junmai coming out of Shimane. I love this brewery. I'm definitely a little bit partial to this brewery. When I was in Japan, I had the opportunity to work with Tanaka-san at Rihaku. So this is a sake that's very, very near and dear to my heart. And I always love to kind of start with one of their sakes. They do a really good job. Everything they have here in the US uses a different sake rice to kind of show off some of the versatility that one brewery in one location can do with different rice types. But yeah, to talk a little bit about the specific sake that we have here, the Dance of Discovery is going to be a junmai sake, which in English is going to mean pure rice. So what that means is this sake has nothing added to it. The only ingredients are going to be rice, water, of course, because it's a liquid, yeast, because it's an alcohol, and then the thing that makes sake special is called koji. It's what is going to break down the starches that are natural in the rice into sugars that the yeast can consume and turn into alcohol. So that's kind of going to be one of the major things that makes sake work, kind of, in a way. In beer making, you have a separate process of using the bran of the different malts that you're using to germinate, which when you germinate these grains, when you malt them, they'll be able to provide their own enzymes to break down their starches into sugars, because that's what starches are for. Starches are a way of a plant to store sugar in a more readily available way, and then convert it into energy when it's needed. The problem, and why we can't just malt our rice the way that you would in something like a beer or in whiskey making, when you have think of like scotch that is made 100% of malt. So kind of that malt word comes up again. We can't do that with sake because the very first thing that a sake producer is going to do is polish or mill the rice, whichever way you kind of want to talk about it. So all rice, when it's grown, is going to be brown rice. And the very, very outside of that rice is going to be the bran. Again, it's kind of the same thing that we're talking about on wheat or barley or whatever other grains, for beer or whiskey making. The first thing that we do in sake making is take that completely off. So we're taking brown rice and we're converting it down into a polished kind of sake. We'll get into kind of percentages, but for the Danza Discovery, we're looking at a 68% polishing rate, meaning they've removed 32% of the rice by weight versus the brown rice and the polished rice. So there's no bran left. You can't just germinate the rice and convert the starches that way versus like with its own, enzymes that are built into it. So what we have to do is introduce something that can do that for us. And that something in sake making is called koji. It is another type of singular-celled organism similar to yeast, but instead of converting sugars into alcohol and carbon dioxide, we will be converting starches into sugars, and we'll be converting proteins into amino acids. Did that make sense so far? I feel like I kind of breezed through that pretty quickly. Does anybody have any questions? That's more on the technical side right now.
It tastes good.
Good. I'm glad we like it.
This is one of my favorite too. I like this one a lot too. I've tried this one before.
You've had this one, yes. So they do a really, really good job. The rice that we're using here is actually local to the Shimane Prefecture, which is going to be in the southern portion of Japan. So this rice is really only grown and used there. So it's really fun. It's a fairly newly developed rice as well. So that's why this sake is called Danza Discovery. The rice is called kanomai, which would loosely translate to like God's dancing. So it's a newly discovered rice. It has dance in the name. So Tanaka-san and his associates have decided to call this Danza Discovery here in the U.S. I think it's a really cute name. I really like the sake. Being a junmai, it's going to have a little bit more of a structured kind of umami flavor, paired with the minerality that Rihaku's water has. I have a nice like little structure, a little bit of that minerality towards the front. A little sweet to me, like has like an edge of sweetness to it that I think works really well. This sake to me pairs really, really beautifully with a lot of different food, which is one of the reasons why I picked it for this evening. This is a go-to for a little richer. This isn't going to stand up to, some, filet mignon with, butter sauce. It's not quite heavy enough to do that, but this does go really beautifully with a lot of, chicken dishes and pork dishes. So yeah, I don't know if anybody else gets a little bit of smokiness on the finish. I get just the slightest little hint, like someone set a campfire like a block away or something.
I get it up front.
That's kind of one. You get the smoke up front, okay.
Yeah. Not so much in the finish, I don't think.
I can see that. I can't.
難しくなってきたね。
あれ
richness in the front, but I
変えてあげた方がいい。
any.
チャットに変えてあげた。
Yeah, and so the choices of bentos that we had this evening, I wanted to do ones that would be nice to that any of these sake are going to pair to something in the box. So feel free to kind of pick and choose and kind of feel what we like. I definitely want to hear from everybody kind of what are their personal favorite pairings between the sakes and the different things that you have in your bento. I really, you know, I like a lot of sommeliers like to just sit and be like, yeah, this goes well with this and goes well with that for these reasons. And you know, I could sit here and talk about that too, but I always find it really interesting to hear what other people, where it's just like, yeah, here are 7 different items, here's 3 different sake. What are your personal favorite pairings and kind of why, in like your own words, why you kind of like those pairings.
うん。
And since we all have a little bit different in terms of food, you know, there were 4 choices. It'll be really interesting to kind of hear from people as we go on this evening as to what we all like.
はい。ゆみちゃん言って。What do you think about this?
ちょっと聞いてなかった。ごめん。
どういうふうに思ってるか言わなきゃいけない。
何食べようとか考えてたから。
Does anybody have any questions so far? I know I went over a little bit of technicality so far, and I know I'm not always the best at explaining the technical aspects. So yeah, if there's questions, please let me know.
Okay, I have a question. Can
Yeah.
you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I'm trying to see who's speaking.
What is the #1 best-selling sake in Japan now?
What is the #1 best-selling sake?
調べないとわからなかっ
Was that the question? I just want to
Yeah.
make sure I got it right.
Yes.
Awesome. So the #1 brewery right now, Takato Shuzo, who makes Shochikubai, actually just took over recently, I believe in like the last year or two, as the #1 sake producer in terms of volume and sales in Japan.
And the US maybe as well? Well, Shochikubai has a plant in California? Well,
They also, yes, they do have a brewery in California as well. They also have several breweries in Japan, and just kind of across the country. Not Shochikubai themselves, but their parent company, Takata. They make sochu. They make a whole host of different products. But what really, at least what I've been told, what really cinched their becoming #1 was the strength of Shochikubai's Mio, kind of worldwide. So Mio is Shochikubai's sparkling, like sweet sparkling sake.
Sparkling wine, sparkling.
Yeah, so if you've had that before, I'm sure you've seen it places. That is kind of what cemented them as being the #1 producer in Japan. Previously, it was actually Hagatsuru, which we'll talk about a little bit later because we have one of their sakes this evening. They were #1 for a while.
Okay.
And then
Shochikubai from where? Like Kyoto or Kobe?
yes, so Shochikubai, they have one of the major breweries is in Kyoto.
Kyoto. Okay.
That is the what do they call the brand of? It's Shochikubai, the Shirakabagora is the brewery in Kyoto, which makes, I think here in the U.S. we get about, I think there's like 4 or 5 different sakes coming out of Shirakabagora.
あそこの高いなんとか。
So yeah. Are there any other questions before we move on?
So Nick, just a quick question. Is this one, the Lihaku, is considered to be a little bit sweet? I think there's a scale, like a sweetness scale, like from minus to plus. So where would this be in terms of the sweetness scale?
So there is such a thing as the sake meter value. That is a thing that exists. I tend not to talk about it unless somebody specifically brings it up.
Okay.
Because it's a little bit complicated when it comes to, you're right that there is a scale that, you know, it goes from minus whatever to plus
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
In my personal experience, it's really only ever useful in its extremes. And what I mean by that is that when it comes to sweetness of something, especially with something like sake, I would say there are at least 3 key factors as to the perceived sweetness of something. To me, it's more important to talk about how sweet something is perceived. And that kind of, the 3 main factors on that is going to be how much sugar is in it.
Right.
So thinking of wine would be the RSM, like a specific number of that. But 2 other major factors with that is going to be how acidic that sake is, and also how high the ABV is. So for me, the Rihaku Den Discovery here, it's a fairly low ABV. It's at 14.1. An average sake is around 15.5 to 16-ish%. So it's a little bit on the lower end. So with that, you're gonna taste, you know, that alcohol heat won't be there as much. So already there, it's going to be perceived, at least in my opinion, a little bit sweeter. And it's not a crazy high acidic sake. It's a very, very clean, fairly low acidity sake. And so kind of between those 2 things, the sake to me pulls, I wouldn't say this is a sweet sake. This is by no means a dessert sake. But I don't know, honestly, what the SMV of the sake is off the top of my head. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably around a +1 or a +2. But with the SMV scale, those numbers, kind of what they are, they were originally used as a brewing metric. They were only ever supposed to be seen by the brewer. It's a way to track the progress of fermentation. And really all it is it's tied to the specific gravity of the sake. So specific gravity is a measure of how dense the sake is compared to pure water, if that makes sense. So the higher alcohol percentage you'll have, you'll drop the SMV, and the higher the sugars remaining that you have, you'll raise the SMV. So that's why it's interesting to talk about, because it has its place in its extremes. If you have a sake, you know, at plus, you know, 7 or +8, or you have one at -5 or 6, those are very much, almost without a doubt, a very dry and a sweet sake. So I hope that's kind of answered your question. I hope that wasn't too vague.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I was just looking at the other one, just for fun. It says -11 there.
That definitely sounds right. Again, being tied to specific gravity, it's almost cheating, because you have you have solids suspended in this.
Right. Yeah. So that doesn't count. The nigori doesn't count, right? I guess.
Right. So that's automatically going to bring your SMB down because you're going to obviously waste more than just regular water having rice solids in here.
Yeah.
So cool. I hope that made sense to everyone.
I wanted to say that the food is very, very good, by the way, but we were finding that this seems to pair very nicely with the chicken.
Yes. So which of the chicken dishes did you have?
The teriyaki.
The teriyaki, yes. So the grilled chicken is going to go really, really well with the dance. I think that's a really fun pairing. The sweetness and the kind of salty umami flavor that a teriyaki sauce has as well is going to play really, really nicely with the minerality and the kind of the smokiness here. You know, because you get that little bit of char when you grill something. Ooh. Any other questions before we move on to the next sake?
Please move to next sake, please.
What was that? I'm sorry?
Please move on to next sake.
Yeah, of course. All right. So the next one we are going to be moving on. We have Dewa Sakura's Oka. So this is a really pretty ginjo. I wanted to pull this one out for a couple of reasons. We're going to be moving up in grade. So we're moving from the Rihaku being at a 68% polish to now we are moving on to Oka's Funny. It's actually at a 50% polishing rate, but they call it a ginjo. So this is a good opportunity to talk briefly on what the relationship between the polishing rate and what you'll find on a bottle of sake kind of means. So the main ones that I want to talk about are really just ginjo and daiginjo, because any more junmai doesn't have a polishing rate requirement, and honjozo is pretty hard to find anymore. But we have a ginjo sake here from Dewa Sakura. So what ginjo means, if you only see ginjo on the bottle, means that it's going to be an added alcohol sake. So they brewed the sake, and before they pressed it, they've added a small amount of distiller's alcohol to extract more of the aroma and flavor compounds out of the moromi, the fermented mash, and then they press it and then they dilute it back down. Like I said, it's a very small amount. It's capped to, if I remember my weight to liters, it's 183 liters per metric ton of rice used. So it's a very small amount of distiller's alcohol that you're allowed to add, and that's the max to be considered a premium sake. And what the ginjo part of this means is that the rice has been polished to a maximum of 60%. So they've taken the brown rice, which would be 100% polished, nothing has been polished away, and they've removed 40% of the rice by weight. And that's not in a, break off 40% off of one end, throw that away and get the other. In the process of polishing sake rice, you get the rice flour. So if you've ever seen or felt rice flour, you know how fine and tiny little bits that we're talking about. And each pass, it's these giant machines that are air-fed, recycling the rice down and up and down and up. To get to a ginjo level quality, the 60% removing 40%, you're probably looking at between Depending on the rice type, between 24 and 48 hours in this machine continuously. So it's a very slow, arduous process, and it's one of the things that is increasing the cost as you move up in grades, is that we're just spending a lot more time in every single process. So I saw someone comment about the anise flavor that the Oka has here. I definitely get a little bit of anise here. I definitely understand what you're saying when you're tasting anise. For sure. It's like, for me, it's pretty strong in the mid and the after palate. Up front, I taste a lot of floral flavor. I taste a lot of flowers, maybe a little bit of fennel in the front that kind of resolves into anise, for me at least. I'm definitely still getting a bit of melon and Asian pear, not a crazy amount. There's a little bit of how would I call that? The anise is like a spice to it too. So the rice here, there's a little bit. I know there's Daewon Sonson rice, which is only used in this prefecture, which always kind of has a grassy kind of spicy quality to it, and I'm definitely tasting that here. Along with that kind of floral melon anise flavor. I'm not sure if that makes sense, if that's what everyone else is tasting.
Nick, would this be a good sake to serve heated? Were you going to talk about which sakes are good warmed and which are best chilled? Or are all of these three sakes ones that would be traditionally served chilled rather than warmed?
So all of these are recommended to be served chilled. Definitely the last two, between the Oka and then the Nagori. Neither of these I would heat up. I've tried heating up Nagoris before, and it takes it's not the worst thing, but I'm not a person who likes things like warm milk. It's weird. The texture kind of changes. I don't like them. And the typically recommended Nagoris are pretty much always served cold. Ginjos will pretty much always be served cold. The Dance of Discovery, the importer recommends to only serve it chilled. You'll see on the back it says serve slightly chilled next to the ABV. I like it heated up just a little bit. I do like the sake just slightly warm. I don't know if Tanaka-san, the owner of the brewery, would like me saying that. I like the sake slightly warm. I would not say hot, but right around 110 degrees Fahrenheit. I do like it there.
What makes a sake a good sake?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What makes a sake a good sake? What makes a sake a good sake to heat up?
Yeah. So,
can you hear me?
Yes, I heard you. So in terms of what makes the sake suitable for heating up, you're going to mostly be looking for a sake. Typically, it's going to be bigger, rounder, more umami-laden sakes. So they're going to be ones that don't have delicate, full or really fruity flavors and aromas, because a lot of those flavors and aromas are going to be coming from chemical compounds like esters, which have really, really, really low boiling points. Esters have boiling points around 110, 115 degrees. So once you heat a sake that is, really perfumey, made with a modern yeast or something like that, like the Oka here is pretty fragrant. It has those delicate flavors to it. Those are all just going to boil off. And there's no reason to have, bought a, this is like a $20 bottle of sake, when you should have just gone with something a little bit, not necessarily lower quality, but something that is more robust, something that's not going to kind of boil off those flavors. If you're looking kind of in a retail setting, whether or not a sake is going to be suitable for warming, safer bets for sure are going to be junmais and honjozos or futsushu. Those are pretty much going to be what you're going to look at for warm sake, unless the bottle specifically says that it is like good warm.
Yeah, I think I also heard before that, and I don't know if this is true 100% of the time. Usually for premium sakes, they tend to be served a little bit chilled, and more like, for house sake, they tend to be heated up more often.
Yes, so you'll definitely see the kind of house sake, junmais, futsushus, more often than not being served warm. A lot of them really shine. I love warm sake. We are now fully into autumn. I've been drinking a lot more warm sake. I have nothing against warm sake at all. Some of my favorite sake is actually suitable for warming. And they'll tell you that right on the bottle, like, serve this slightly chilled or warm. I think a fun tasting would be doing, a couple sakes cold and hot. That would be a fun one. It's a little bit more challenging in kind of this distanced online, because it's hard to control. Your sake, you might heat it accidentally to 130 degrees when I really only want you to try it at 115. So it's kind of, it's a little bit more challenging. I'm definitely looking forward to doing and welcoming everybody back to get to kind of do those kinds of tastings here, hopefully very shortly. I definitely know warm sake season is definitely upon us, and I know I'm looking forward to trying a couple new things this season, and I hope that you guys will also all get to give some nice warm sake a try. I know a lot of sushi restaurants that you go to, it's going to be those futsushu, those cheaper, 18-liter cases of sake coming out of California, which aren't bad in their own. I'm not going to sit here and say, Shochikubai's, California-grown 18-liter box is garbage, don't drink it. I'm not going to say that. I have immense respect for Takata Shuzo and Shochikubai for their 18-liter bottles. It's not my favorite. It has its place, though. It absolutely does. But I will say that there are some absolutely brilliant sake that you would never expect to be what you would want from a warm sake. So I'll kind of leave warm sake there, since we're not doing any this evening. But if anybody does have further questions, feel free to ask. That's kind of just where I want to leave that this evening.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have a recommendation to Jennifer. Have you
I'm sorry?
I have a recommendation to. Have you ever tried Shirakabe Gura? Shirakabe
Yes.
Gura, no? That one is very good. Warm up.
The Junmai Kimoto?
I don't remember.
Okay, I was gonna say I know Shirakawa-Goda has I think 3 sakes available.
Okay, okay, okay. Right, okay. I know what you mean. Know what you mean. But one of the Shirakawa bottle saying high-end temperature. The best temperature is just above the body. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but
No, I've had all of them. They are all very, very good. I do very much recommend them. I definitely love their sake. They do a great job. I know for a fact that their Junmai Kimoto, just off the top of my head of what I've had, is a phenomenal warm sake. Absolutely phenomenal.
anyway, if you buy a Shirakawa, the bottle saying what is the best temperature? Number 1, very high. Number 2, room temperature.
Yeah.
Number 3,
So when it comes to
much
me,
chilled. Shirakawa should drink warming up by you know what's it called? microwave.
Yeah.
Is 20 high, 20 40. Usually 20 seconds, but that one is good for 22 seconds to 22 seconds in the high temp.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. You don't need special equipment when it comes to warm sake. A microwave is just fine. My recommendation, if you are using a microwave, is like you said, go in short bursts. No more than 20 seconds at a time, and you reach the temperature that you want. And you don't need special equipment to anything like that. Honestly, a mug, a coffee mug, if it's microwave safe, is a beautiful vessel to heat up sake because it'll heat it up a little bit more evenly. If you have some really, really pretty tokori, of course, use those. That's what I use in water because I have them. But for those who don't have specialized equipment,
I agree with you. Like you're talking about like a microwave, 1200 watts.
How many watts? I'm sorry.
1200, not kilowatt, right?
If you have 1200, yeah, I have 1000 watts. 1200, I would definitely say 15 seconds at a time, not too many.
Okay. But Shirakawa is 22 seconds is good because of my experiments. I tried 20 seconds drinking, right? Like 10 seconds drinking, then now 22 seconds, very, very good.
Very nice. Oh, cool. No, I will have to keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah, but like you said, 3 kinds of Shirakawa, right? 3 kinds of Shirakawa. Yeah, not too expensive one, I think.
There are some expensive ones, yes. The Junmai
I think
is fairly expensive by now.
$13 for this. $13 for this much piece.
Yes, the dance is $13. Absolutely.
Oh,
that's what we will all charge this evening. So, but yeah, does anybody else have any questions, especially while we're on warm sake or about the ginjo, anything with added alcohol? Because I know we've talked a little bit about both so far. Let me read the chat real quick. I bet the oka with the seaweed salad would be a lot of that kind of vegetation because the oka has a little
plant just tastes like fiber and chlorophyll.
I can see that. Cool. Well, if there's no other questions right now, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the last one, if that's okay with everyone. Good. Cool. just giving everyone a chance to make sure if they want to chime in, they can. Cool. So the last one is going to be from Hakatsudo. I know, so I did run out of the Hakatsudo branded Sayori. So several of you will have sake that says Hakatsudo Sayori, Little Lily. Several other of you will have what I have, which is going to be this Hello Kitty branded sake. I guarantee to all of you, it is the exact same sake. So
I want that bottle. I want that bottle.
Has been working on developing a whole kind of lineup of alcoholic beverages, and I felt okay doing it this way because honestly, I kind of wanted to talk about this because it's an industry standard in kind of everything. It's not just sake. This isn't a sake exclusive thing, but you'll see companies buying stock of, you know, a sake, of an unaged whiskey, stuff like that from other producers and then rebranding it as their own. And I'm here to unequivocally, in my own opinion, say that's okay. I have no qualms with Hello Kitty, you know, contacting Hakatsudo and being like, hey, can I get a Nigori sake? I have no problem with that at all. It is the exact same. I've tasted them side by side. Without a doubt, these are the exact same sake. So if you have the Hello Kitty or if you have the Hakatsudo, they are both made by Hakatsudo. So whichever skin you have the same sake. I just want to make that clear, first and foremost. So sorry about that. Sorry to keep you waiting, but yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Hakatsudo. I have the Hello Kitty, you know, branded one here. Who else has it? Because it's super cute. If you can show it to me, I'm very curious to see how many, like, I feel like we're probably half and half. All right, so Jason has the regular Sayori, Aaron has the Hello Kitty, Jennifer has the Sayori. Do you guys have one of each of the queens? No, both Hello Kitty. Okay. I couldn't see yours over there. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just curious because I honestly didn't pay any attention as I kind of gave them to all of you guys. But I am excited. I don't drink a lot of Nigori myself. It's a very, very, very popular thing here in the U.S. I'm not entirely sure what the reason is, but I have noticed that a lot of American people have an affinity towards Nigori sake. I don't know what the historical precedence of that is, to be completely honest, but I know it's something that I get asked about quite often. So I want to clear up just a couple quick things when it comes to the Nigori kind of category as a whole to start with. And then if you guys have any other further questions, feel free to ask. So Nigori sake is going to be a cloudy type of sake, as we can all see. It does not mean unfiltered. So sake, to be legally considered sake, seishu in Japanese, it has to be pressed. So it has to be filtered in some way. You can either do a coarse pressing, which was the original Nigoris, like to get kind of the same kind of milky kind of consistency, or recently in the past, I think around 30, 40 years, the laws were changed that you can just press your sake and then just directly add a small bit of solids after you've pressed it. That's the way most nigori sake are made anymore. You press it fully, like either the Dance of Discovery or the Oka that we had earlier, where it's completely clear, and then you just take the pressings off. I'm going to try and see if I can quickly find a picture of a pressing machine. Give me just a minute and I will see if I can find a picture of me with I'm not sure what you guys are seeing. Can you guys see my screen, or is it just my picture? Someone speak up.
Nick, you're going to have to
What's your name?
share. You'll have to share your screen.
Okay. Am I just blank right now?
It's
Yeah.
just your name, yes.
Okay. Give me just a second. This is the only picture that I have of me. Are you able to see this now?
Yes.
Yes, yes, we can see it. Yes.
So this is a pressing machine at Rihaku. This is the Yubota. This is the most common style of pressing sake. So you can see in my hand, down like what the sheets in my hand, that is the sake kasu. So that is the lees, if you're thinking of wine. Those are the solid particles. So what we're looking at right here on either left and right side of the screen are two panels of, I believe this was a 40-something panel Yubota. So you can see on the right-hand side, across from my face, you can see the darker section on the panel. And you can see the line up top running from the very, very top of the screen down into the panel on the right side. The unfiltered sake is flown through there and then down into each segment, and then it's pressed through, and then the kasu is left, and then the clear sake will run down and into another tank. Can everyone kind of see how that works? Did that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Cool. So in the way that most sake, nigori sake is made now, is that you would just go ahead and run it through one of those machines, and then you would take a portion of those sheets that I was holding there, and you would just add that back into the sake. You are legally allowed to do that now. That's, in terms of sake making, that's a relatively new development. But that is the way that most nigori sake are made these days. So I hope that kind of clears up the fact that nigori sake does not mean unfiltered. It means just cloudy. I hope that helped clear up that kind of misnomer and just kind of translation language things.
I think so, because I think that what I heard before was that nigori is unfiltered. I think that you made a good point of clarifying that.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, because you'll hear that a lot. Other songs will talk about it that way because it just kind of makes sense in the English language, which is fine. I'm not bashing anybody who does that. I'm just trying to be a little bit more specific and kind of getting to sit down and do this. I hope that it helps clarify everything. But beyond that, let's go ahead and give this a try, shall we? Because I actually haven't had the Sayoi in a little bit. It's probably been close to a year since I've tried this sake. So this is actually a lot less sweet than I remember it being. I'm like Negotis to me can be really, really overbearingly sweet. Some of them are so thick and so sweet that they are that to me I can't drink them. I'm not a huge dessert kind of sake drinker. It's just not in my style. If you like it, that's great. There's plenty of places who make sake like that. It's just not what I go for. I'm getting a really, really nice kind of like a really kind of yeasty, like almost banana bread kind of flavor. I'm not sure if everyone else is kind of, that's kind of what hits me in the face at first. It's almost like if you made a banana bread with sourdough starter. Like that's kind of what it tastes like to me. You know, there's other kind of ancillary flavors here. I'm getting, you know, a little bit of green apple. I'm not really getting any pear, but I can kind of see if you got that. Yeasty, kind of bready, a little bit sweet, but with enough kind of umami to really, like this would still very much pair with food and not like just a cheesecake.
Is it,
Like,
is it true that Nigori is considered easier to drink? That's what I heard.
That's very much a personal question for each person. I feel like for a lot of, for whatever reason, Americans find it really, really easy to drink. And I don't know if that has to do with our palates typically being sweeter, like kind of liking sweets more. I'm not quite sure. Kind of in Japan, Negoris as a whole still kind of have a bad name. Because they're still kind of associated with like bootleg sake. So think of like moonshine, where you don't really see a lot of moonshine cocktails. You don't really see them in like higher end establishments. It's a little bit similar. There's a parallel there to be made, in that the filtering process of sake is kind of equivalent to, you know, trying to age whiskey, in that it's more challenging, more time and energy consuming that someone who just wants something alcoholic and is just doing it, you know, black market style doesn't really care. So kind of historically speaking, that's what Nigori sake was just really, really coarsely filtered sake. It was actually illegal for a really, really long time, again, for the same reason of that it was just, you know, black market people producing sake, not having the technology to filter it, to clear, and selling it anyways, and the Japanese government not being able to tax it. That was the main thing. Sake made up such a huge, huge, huge percentage of taxable income in Japan for like up until like the 20th century, that you wouldn't see this style in kind of a legal way, just because the amount of taxes that were generated off of sake was so high. I don't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but I believe it was over 50% of tax money collected in Japan was due to sake production and consumption. I don't quote me, but I will almost guarantee it was higher than 50%, but I don't remember the exact percentage off the top of my head. I would have to find that data again, and I don't have it readily available. I do apologize, but it was a considerable portion of taxes in terms of what was being generated by the Japanese government. So there's some fun history, some fun technical things.
This has been really fun. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thank
I've
you.
learned a lot.
I feel like I've covered what I needed to cover in terms of talking about these three sake. Are there any other further questions right now? I'm in no rush. If anybody else has further questions, I'm happy to stay on and talk as long as anybody wants. But in terms of kind of formally what I wanted to say about these three sake, I guess the last thing that I want to ask while I still have everyone here, several people have shared some of their tasting notes. I see some melon flavors from Steve and Katie. That was talking about the Nigori, correct? I'm not seeing where you are. Give me a second. Steve and Katie? You're both, there you are, unmuted. I can hear you.
Hi, yeah, we're watching on our TV, and so if we unmute for too long, it'll do crazy things with the sound. But yeah, the Nigori was the one that we were talking about with like melon flavor, maybe.
Yeah, no, I definitely get a little bit of melon. With a lot of like sakes, especially like made with some of the more common varieties of rice, I get more of a like honeydew flavor. But with this one specifically, I'm getting a melon flavor, but I wouldn't call it honeydew. It's more of like a cantaloupe to me. I'm not sure if it's kind of similar for you guys. But I would call it more cantaloupe with those kind of yeasty, banana-y flavors. But yes,
yeah, definitely.
I am getting Kozue, yes. So I got kind of started and interested in sake when it was like really like got serious about oh, thank you so much, Jennifer. We will see you in just a little in a bit. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you later, okay? Thank you. But to Kozue, in terms of me getting started in sake, it was when I started taking over the restaurant here, when I started having to manage here, it was more of a, hey, what can I do to kind of, set the restaurant here apart, kind of contribute something new to the city that it hasn't had. So it was like, yeah, like sake makes sense. Or do I want to do cocktails, kind of Japanese cocktails? So I was kind of between the two. I took a trip to both New York and Chicago to kind of experience kind of more of the meccas of Japanese culture and kind of Japanese restaurants in the U.S. I didn't get a chance to go to the West Coast. Unfortunately, it was a bit far for me at the time. But I felt I got to taste premium sake for the first time at Momotaro in Chicago, and I just fell in love. I was in the izakaya before dinner. I had dinner reservations. And I was excited for that, but I got there early, sat down with my significant other at the time, kind of waiting for our reservations, and we went to the izakaya downstairs. And the person there, the bartender there, sat down with us for probably 15, 20 minutes, just talking about the sake that they had on their list. And it was my first time really diving into premium sake. And to have someone sit and explain and to really get to taste some phenomenal differences in what I had that evening, I realized that that's what I wanted my focus to be. They had an excellent selection of Japanese whiskey. They had some excellent Japanese style cocktails, and I loved those. and I do like to study those things as well. But there was something about the premium sake category that's hard for me to explain in words that I just fell in love with. And I am so happy that I did. Getting to work with sake brewers and some of the authorities of the sake world, like John Gottner and Timmy Sullivan and Chris Johnson here in the US, when it comes to people who, and Monica Samuels, who have been promoting and pushing and really just opening the market to premium sake across the US for the past 15, 20 years for some of these guys. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to get to work with these guys and to get to share their experiences and learn from them and get to share it with people like you guys. I am extremely happy that this is what I decided on making my career out of, and it makes me happy that people here in Columbus are excited to sit down and listen to people. And I'm so happy that all of you guys are sharing with me this evening and that you are getting to enjoy some beautiful sake with me on World Sake Day. You guys are going to make me cry.
Just want to say thank you, Nick, for all your information and being willing to volunteer and put your time out like this and explain all this stuff to us. I know I'm just kind of taken back by all the different types myself, but I do definitely like the Dance of Discovery, probably my favorite one from tonight.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad that you get to join us this evening. It's hard for me to pick a favorite between these three. I love all of them in their own right, which is why we're all trying them tonight. But if push came to shove, I would have to say the Dance of Discovery is also my favorite. But again, I'm probably a bit biased in that fact. Tanaka-san is great. I get to see some of his Facebook posts with him, trying with them being ahead of us in terms of time. Getting to see him drunk and enjoying World Sake Day was really great. I was really happy to see him being happy. And I'm glad that I'm getting to share his sake with all of you guys this evening. Someone just asked a question and I missed it. Give me just a second. Katayama sake from Nico. Nico. I feel like Katayama, I feel like I was just talking to a gentleman about their sake. Give me a second. I don't know if you guys can see me right now, and I do apologize if you cannot. No, that's actually a different brewery in Tochigi that I am not familiar with. What was the name? Katayama. I'm not familiar with Katayama sake in Tochigi. Not at all. Is that available in Ohio? Have you bought that here, or did you get to try that somewhere else?
I got to go to Japan sort of recently, and it's like a sort of small family place. And anyway, the guy, I think the guy passed away recently, and we brought some of his sake home with us. But I have no idea if you can get it in the US or not. I was just curious if you've had it because I have no idea if it's good. I mean, it tastes good to me, but I don't know if it's
well, then it's good.
Standards, anything like that, you know.
Oh, to answer your question, if it tastes good to you, it's good. It's a good sake then. That's really what's most important. Like I can sit here and say, yeah, like, oh yeah, this is my favorite sake. That's my favorite sake. If it's a sake that you like, it's a good sake. Just full stop. I've not had a chance to try their sake before. I will definitely have to look in to see if anyone's importing it to the U.S. I have the chat. I will be sure to save that name. I'm actually going to take a screenshot right now so I don't forget. Got it.
If you do, like let me know, because I would love to have it again. We ran out.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, if there's anything kind of stuff like that, I always am looking with working with more importers, more distributors. I've tried my hardest to bring as many different kinds of sakes into Ohio as I could when I first started, really focusing on sake, 2 or 3 years ago. There was a lot of sake that I had to fight to get to bring into the U.S., not only into the U.S., but just into Ohio. But I have some amazing friends at several different import companies between Vine Connections and World Sake Imports. There are so many good importers, and Skernick has been great working with me. I just get to bring in some new sake into Ohio that wasn't here before. I'm very, very, very much looking forward to it. It'll be on my menu when we relaunch. But I was actually the first sake that I was drinking this evening was one of them. But I love looking for new stuff. I love getting to try. There are so many phenomenal sakes coming out of Japan. Someone had asked earlier, and I definitely had ignored it, and I do apologize. Someone had asked about Japanese versus American-made sake. Who was that? Give me a second. Someone had asked something about that. That was also Kazue. Sorry, I ignored half your question. So there are some great sakes coming out of the U.S. as well. Sake One, who is based in Oregon, has been doing some premium sake for quite a long time. I'm not quite sure when they opened, but they've been doing this. They're definitely a fairly large brewery in Oregon that does some phenomenal sake. I have friends in Brooklyn who opened a brewery about 3 years ago, which is Brooklyn Kota. They have some phenomenal namazake. Here in Ohio, I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 places who are carrying some of their sake. But they do some great nama stuff, some nama genshu. There are some great people making phenomenal sake out of Brooklyn. There are several that I've not got to try that I've heard are absolutely excellent. 2 that I would definitely keep an eye out if you're ever in a place that has them. Arizona sake, made in Arizona, has won several awards. The owner of the brewery is a super nice guy. I love him to pieces. I've not had a chance to try any of his sake, unfortunately, but I've interacted with him on several occasions, and he's won several awards and is super nice, and I can't wait to try his sake. The other one that actually just opened today, I got to watch the christening of their how do you say, tap room? Close enough word for me right now. Is the Islander Sake brewery in Hawaii. So the last brewery that was open in Hawaii actually closed 34 years ago. And this is a kind of rebirth of sake made in Hawaii. And I am so happy that they have reopened. I'm so happy that I got to experience the blessing of the building, and I cannot wait till I get to Hawaii to try their sake, until I find someone who will send me a bottle of it. I'm very, very, very excited to try theirs. So if anybody has anyone in Hawaii that can send them things, if you're going to Hawaii, I cannot recommend highly enough, without even trying their sake, I cannot recommend highly enough theirs. I cannot wait to try their sake. There are several other breweries in the U.S. that I couldn't recommend more, but I don't want to miss anybody. Colorado Sake is another friend of mine that between them and Ben's American Sake down in North Carolina are also doing some phenomenal, not traditional sake. They are doing very much sake blending with an American culture. I haven't had Colorado's, but I've had Ben's American. They are doing some really, really fascinating infused and just kind of different sakes that are very much taking the Japanese tradition and infusing them with some American culture, some local things going on around them. And they're doing some really, really interesting things. So I definitely recommend them as well if you're looking for some things that are distinctly, these are American sake based off of Japanese tradition. Any other questions right now?
Can I just make a quick recommendation? I think, I don't know, we were talking about the premium sakes, right? And that's one that I really like that, you know, maybe you have known about it. I think it's called Daishichi. Daishichi.
Yes.
And it's really one of my favorites. There's the Kimoto one, right? And I really like it. I just wanted to recommend that. And I actually, when I was in Japan, I bought one of them. They have like different types, but there's one that I really like. I think it's from Fukushima, right?
It's from Fukushima. Hi.
Fukushima, yeah. So I just wanted to recommend that. I really like that.
Yes. Unfortunately, the only daishichi that I can buy for the restaurant is the Kimoto Honjozo, which is phenomenal. I say it's unfortunate because I love daishichi sake so much that I wish I could carry more of the sake. Which one is that? Is that the?
I just want to show this. This is one of my favorites for that. Minowamo. So this is this is really a good one. If I can recommend this one.
That's very very pretty. Yeah, that's the Daigimyo, yeah.
Yeah, so it's so this one and I really like, it's really beautiful. The box is beautiful, you know. So and this is, I recommend this one. So it's really, really good.
Yes, Daishichi does a phenomenal job. I love Fukushima sake. And they definitely still need our help. You know, it's been a little bit over 9 years since the tsunami and everything that happened, but Fukushima is still rebuilding. They've come back.
This one too. I keep all the empty boxes. This is all empty. This is all empty. So I you know, this is like done long time ago. So but this one is really good too. Shoka.
I'm not familiar with that one. I can't see it.
Yeah.
Shoka?
Yeah. I don't know if you can see that.
Can you get this in the States?
I don't think so.
Don't believe so.
I don't think so. When I was in Japan, I got those because this is one of my favorites. And I think I got it from the department store. Yeah. This is really good.
I bought way more sake than I would like to personally admit at 7-Elevens when I was in Japan. A lot more than I would probably like to admit, but some phenomenal sake. Oh. Are there any other pairings that I saw some stuff called out? Was there anything else that somebody wanted to mention in terms of pairings or anything like that? I know I didn't focus much on the pairings because I kind of wanted this to be more of an exploration. All three of the sakes that we had this evening should have paired pretty well with everything that was in whatever bento box you chose. There wasn't really a bad choice in terms of pairing. I'm sorry if anybody was here looking specifically only for pairing information. I'm not the utmost authority on that. I love getting to talk about it and exploring it, but I will not say that I'm authority on the subject by any means.
So when I started drinking sake for the first time was only a couple years ago, and I looked up like mixed drinks, and I saw that grapefruit was a popular combination. I happen to have grapefruits that I bought yesterday, which is a big coincidence. So anyway, have you heard of things like that or any mixed drinks with sake?
Oh, I mean, I love sake cocktails. Absolutely. I have no qualms against doing sake cocktails. I mean, the Dance of Discovery itself, I think I've done 3 different cocktails with the Dance of Discovery here at the restaurant that have been on my cocktail list. I typically pick sakes that are a little bit more robust in terms of when I'm making cocktails, just because, if I'm pairing it with, some more aggressive flavors, I don't want to bury, a daiginjo. Also, that would make it kind of prohibitively expensive if I used, $100 bottle of sake versus, a $20 bottle. It's start to make, my cocktails a little bit too expensive. But they also typically work a little bit cheaper because they tend to be a little bit more robust sakes. Tend to do really, really well in cocktails. I've not played a lot with grapefruit specifically, just because typically I have access to kabosu and yuzu, so I try to use a little bit more Japanese citrus when I make cocktails. But having grapefruit, to me, yuzu is very much like a grapefruit kind of orange and lemon-ish kind of cross between flavors. So grapefruit and sake sounds like it would be amazing. I'm not gonna lie. One of the more interesting things that I saw, nothing that we have today is koshu. I've not actually got a chance to try it, but one of the segments that I saw at the broadcast today was a whiskey, a little itty bitty bit of whiskey mixed with aged sake is apparently a phenomenal cocktail, and it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to trying. I've just not worked up the courage to opening a $90 bottle of koshu sake that I have here.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm kind of, besides sake recently, I'm starting to try a little bit of Japanese whiskey. So
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a good idea to mix a little bit of that Japanese whiskey and Japanese sake.
I mean, it's definitely not a bad idea to try. There's been, I love mixing whiskey and sake, especially, the person today recommended specifically an aged sake, but I would say just a sake that has a little bit of heft to it. I just came downstairs to grab a bottle of Japanese whiskey so that I can see if anything that we have here will kind of pair well. I'm sorry if it's a bit laggy or a bit hectic when it comes to what's on screen right now. Yeah, I'm gonna set you guys down for just a second until I can find a bottle.
Mm.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Oh.
Thank you. This was fun.
Are you guys heading out
Bye.
now?
さよなら。ごちそうさまでした。
When I was young, I called Japanese sake crazy water. Crazy water. That's Japanese sake.
Crazy.
Where's the
あ、私たち。じゃあ、書いちゃって。
Right. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know how many people we still have left. I don't know how many people have had to head out, but I do appreciate you all still being here. Awesome. Let's see. I did finally find a bottle of Japanese whiskey that I think will be appropriate for.
Is that Hibiki?
It's a Nika, actually. So it's Nika's coffee grain. It's just the first thing that I found I think will work fairly well. My liquor cabinet right now at the restaurant is kind of a mess, just because we've had to put it all away.
I do have a Toki one.
The Toki, yeah,
A Toki.
Toki should work too. I'm just adding a little bit, and I have Dance of Discovery here in my glass. I think that's going to be my best choice of the three here that we have. Yeah, that works. The person today was using Makers, actually. Makers with like a 2-year age sake. And it definitely sounded like something that I wanted to try. Makers, has a little bit of sweetness to it. Being bourbon, 51% corn. Can you still see me? Okay, cool. Still not quite entirely sure when can and cannot see me when I'm doing different things in my phone.
Yeah,
so.
I can see you.
Okay, cool. So this is Dance of Discovery that has maybe, honestly, like 6 drops of this Nika whiskey in it.
Okay.
And it's really fun.
I don't think
so
I've
Laura,
ever
in
tried
terms
that.
of,
I don't think I've ever tried that, mixing them together. I don't think I've tried that before.
Today's actually my first day just adding a couple drops of whiskey into my sake, because it was recommended at one of the panels for the American Sake Association's like World Sake Day stuff. So it was one of the things that they showed. I was like, I've never tried that. Let's try it. So now I'm sharing that with you guys today, and this is my first time trying it. Right now, you guys get to see my reaction. Someone just said something about Scotch. Who was that? Laura, yes. So actually, Japanese whiskey is going to be very, very similar to Scotch. So if all you have is Scotch right now at your house, I would definitely recommend trying the Dance of Discovery with just a few drops. Like in a glass, just a couple ounces of the Dance, just put a couple drops of whatever Scotch you have. It's really interesting. It's hard for me to describe.
Yeah, well, okay, so I've now put me on, I've been screen sharing onto my TV as well. So I've branched into the Japanese whiskeys some, but not
Okay.
tons yet. So,
Okay.
but this has got me thinking, so I'm going to try. What the heck?
What one was that? I'm sorry.
That's the Glenmorangie. This is the Quinta, which is a port cask. It's a
Ooh,
14-year.
that'll be
So-
really, especially being port cask. I want to
Yeah.
know what you think about that when you try that. I want to know your reaction.
Yeah. That was my first thought compared to I have a couple of other scotches in the house right now. I'm definitely a peaty, mossy, dirt kind of flavored girl. My favorite is actually Peat Monster, if you can believe that, or Kalila.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, no. I mean, Lafroy is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So
So, what the heck? Let's find out. But it's going to go into a mug instead of a sake cup, though.
that's fine. I'm curious, what's kind of everyone drinking out of in terms of their sake? Because I know I didn't provide any glassware.
Oh. I was doing traditional.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, those are
Well-
pretty too for the queens. I've not seen everyone. Stephen Katie,
yeah.
yes, that's really cute.
Yeah, I'm just using a small one. I guess
Little
I can use a
spot.
big one. That's just a
Yeah.
whole fruit. So,
That's what I'm using. I'm just using a little, stemless wine glass.
All right, and the blend is going into a minion mug.
Nice, nice. Those are all very pretty, guys. Thank you for sharing.
This is very good. This is
Oh
very
my.
Keep cool. Oh,
What do you think?
I am taken off guard about how much it sweetened it up. The port actually is really showing through.
I bet it would, yeah. The
I mean,
port-
really showing through. That's surprising. I like it, but it definitely changes the whole character.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with,
No, it's not a complaint. Yeah, it's chemistry.
You're talking to a chemist, I understand.
Actually, the other oddball thought I'm having is I have been drinking this lately. It's just a flavored water. This one
Flow?
happens to be grapefruit and elderflower.
Okay.
And I'm almost wondering how diluting the nigiri with this would be.
That could be interesting. Actually, when it comes to like cocktail wise,
Yeah.
I love using nigoris in cocktails.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, being an Asian restaurant, I try not to use anything with lactose very often. But if
Right.
I'm looking for something with, a little bit more of a milky or creamy texture, my go-to is reaching for a thick nigori, like the Seigori from Hakatsudu. Like, absolutely. Like, I love
Right.
getting to mix with these thicker nigoris like this.
Yeah. Well, I know from experience that nigori goes well with Saint Germain.
What
The
doesn't go
elderflower
well with Saint Germain, to be fair? Just so everybody knows, Saint Germain is known as the bartender's ketchup.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that, Saint Germain is known as the bartender's ketchup.
Yeah. Yeah. But it does go. It makes
But
it
it's
very,
beautiful. Nothing wrong with it.
yeah, but it makes a very desserty kind of finish. Allows, yeah. All right. So let's find this one out.
Yeah, no,
I don't play with my alcohol very often. This is fun.
I always recommend just kind of playing with whatever you have at your house. Just honestly, for craps and giggles, like, just play with stuff. See what you can come up with.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that for this one, the Toki Japanese whiskey actually is the price is not too bad.
No, not at all.
Considering how expensive Japanese whiskey is. So this one I think is a pretty, you get, I think it's like 30 some dollars, and
Yeah.
you get a whole bottle of the Toki, and it's pretty good, So, and I know that there are some other Japanese whiskeys that is pretty hard to get in Columbus. The Hibiki. Although I find out that Giant Eagle is carrying that now.
Oh yeah, it's hard for me to get the Hibiki occasionally.
Yeah,
but I have to.
That's like $100. That's like $100 a bottle. At least $100 a bottle.
If you're looking for other cheaper, really nice Japanese whiskeys, I like the Toki. Don't get me wrong, but for around the same price, my favorite is the Tenjaku, and it's literally about the same price.
Okay.
Let me grab that real quick. I have this downstairs. Give me just a moment.
I guess you like the Hibiki too, right?
I love the Hibiki, but you're right. It is a bit expensive. But when it comes to, in the same kind of price range as the Hibiki, this is what I like to drink.
Okay, this one. Okay. Tenjaku. Okay.
This like, if I'm going to drink a cheaper Japanese whiskey, this is what I drink at home.
Okay.
It used to be Toki, but anymore, this is what I keep in my house constantly.
I think I saw that in the Giant Eagle as well. I think I saw that.
It's not too difficult to get your hands on, and like I said, if it's more expensive than the Toki, it's by literally just a few dollars. It's worth it. To me, it's a little bit more complex, a little bit more heavy. It's a little bit more what I expect out of a whiskey. The Toki is a beautiful kind of cocktail making Japanese whiskey, but the Tenjaku to me is something that I could just sit and drink neat or on the rocks. I don't need to do anything to it.
Right. Exactly. Yes. I suppose that the more, I don't know, the more expensive the whiskey is, you want to drink it neat, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yep.
I have some. I've not gotten my hands. So recently, Ohio has added some very, very nice Japanese whiskeys. I've not gotten my hands on them yet, but they added the Hakushu 18, which is a $400 bottle.
Oh my God. I saw the Yamazaki at the Giant Eagle. They have it at the Giant Eagle.
The Yamazaki 12, it's still only like 150. It's expensive, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it is expensive.
But the Hakushu 18 is like a $400 bottle of whiskey.
Wow. And you can find it in Ohio?
Yes, it was just recently added to the state. I'm not sure which liquor stores have it, but the fact that my liquor store, which is the busiest liquor store in Ohio, doesn't have it means that no one else does yet. So I have to buy all of my liquor through Arena, which is the busiest liquor store in the state of Ohio. If they don't have it yet, no one else does. Just they get everything first.
Okay, so the elderflower and grapefruit water with a nigiri is boring.
Boring. Interesting. In what way? How do you mean boring?
It's almost like it has very little depth now. I'm trying to think how to explain it. You miss the texture of the nigiri by putting the water, but on top of that, it's almost too fruity to the point where it's bland.
Okay. No, I understand what that means.
Yeah, you you can't distinguish the layers as well anymore.
So you just did the nigori and the
And a little bit of this grapefruit elderflower water, and I'm not impressed.
I
Right.
and just kind of my cocktail kind of mentality.
Yeah.
My gut reaction is that it needs more acidity. So
Probably.
lemon juice or lime juice or just straight grapefruit juice. I feel like it would lift it a bit more so that it's not so flat.
That would make sense because the grapefruit is definitely lost.
Yes, I can imagine that it would be.
So yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. I think you're probably right.
I'm no expert. I like making cocktails, and I've made a lot of them, but I am no means an expert. I don't want to claim that here this evening.
Yeah, I was a bartender 25 years ago, whatever it was.
I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm sure most of you about
you can
what age I am because you've been looking at me for the past almost 2 hours now.
Yeah.
I'm trying the nigori right now with a little bit of the whiskey because I'm really curious to see what it does to nigori.
See, I wouldn't you try my port with that one. I have a really boring, maybe Loch Lomond or something I might do it with.
I mean, there's nothing like I love Lagavulin. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, yeah.
When it comes to cheap, especially Isla scotches, I'll drink Lagavulin every day. Like that's fine.
Well, it's nice and it's predictable. It's comfortable.
It's predictable and it's representative.
Yes.
It's very representative of the category. So I have no complaints about it whatsoever.
Yeah. Whereas literally my favorite is Peat Monster. Which is not everybody's style.
No, I mean it's not mine, but I definitely respect it.
Yeah. It's zippy.
That's one way to put it for sure.
Yeah. It has a lot more umami than a lot of other scotches do. We'll put it that way.
Yes, for sure.
It goes really well with barbecue, though.
I would imagine so.
Interesting. Cat's judging me. You don't like that mix either, huh? All right.
Does anybody else have any questions right now? I'm happy to stay on as long as you guys want. Like,
I actually probably need to clean up the dishes in my house because I never did them from lunch today. So
I feel that with unfortunate amounts of pain.
So thank you very much. This was lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So glad to have you guys here.
Thank you, Nick. This is very good. I think that it turned out really well.
I do too.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad that you guys got to join us. And
By the way, is the Rishi Sushi, do you guys still, are you doing dine-in right now or just take carry out?
Right now we are still only carry out, but we are at the moment working on doing some private dining style settings. So keep posted with that kind of stuff. We're not quite sure when we're ready to launch them, but we have been talking about them for the past several weeks. So it's something that will happen pretty soon.
Okay.
And I cannot wait to have and get to see you guys. I definitely miss getting to serve people and getting to talk about sake. like this every day. I thank everyone who's get to join us this evening. It's been so much fun to actually get to talk to people about sake and get to see all of your smiling faces. It really means a lot to me that you have joined me and JASCO for an event such as this. It's been so much fun. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. So,
I have very much. Do you do very many of these?
this is my first tasting since like April. So I don't get during this whole time I've not had a chance to get to do many of these. But I am very thankful for anybody who comes and gets sake. I've definitely had a few. I've got to talk to people about sake. But in terms of sitting down and talking to a group of people about sake and answering questions, I believe this is my second during all of quarantine. So.
Gotcha. Well, I may be wanting to speak to you again. I do the speakers for a convention that happens every October. So we canceled this year. It was supposed to be tomorrow when it starts. But this is very much the kind of thing that a lot of the people enjoy. So.
I would love to get to do something like that with you in the future. I'm definitely looking forward to 2021 and seeing what can come about from all of this. This has been terrible for so many of our friends in the restaurant industry. We have been very thankful that we've had the community support from people like you guys through delivery and pickup. We will pull through this. We will be reopening. And I cannot wait to greet all of you back here as soon as it's safe. We are working on making sure that when you come in, you will feel safe and you will be safe. And I cannot wait to get to see all of your smiling faces in person again and get to talk about sake and food in Japan again.
Yeah, definitely. I missed the, I think I mentioned before, I've been to the restaurant before quite a few times to do the sake flights. So that was really good. So I really miss doing that.
I miss getting to do it for all of you guys. Again, I am so thankful that all of you have chosen to participate this evening. This has been honestly, again, guys, I'm at the point of trying to contain myself from crying on a Zoom call, but this has meant so much to me to get to talk to all of you and get to, explain some sake that I love and get to talk to the people of the city that I love. I've been here now for almost 8 years. I love Columbus. I love the people here. And doing things like this is why I've stayed in this industry. I did chemical engineering, but I fell in love with restaurants and sake. And I want to continue to be here for you guys and for the rest of the city. I love getting to share my personal experiences, learn from your guys' personal experiences when it comes to sake and food and everything. It's been an honor to get to talk to all of you this evening about sake and about the food. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart that we got to do this. Thank you, Yuko, for reaching out to me and getting to arrange this with everybody here this evening.
Kanpai.
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 Kanpai.